Zombie movies are always a pleasure to watch. It's a particular part of the horror genre that can spawn a wide variety of subgenres and directions. They can be heroic, tragic, comedic, or just downright disgusting and exploitative. Zombie movies have been known to focus on a wide variety of social and psychological issues. Toward the end of the 1970s, a certain series, the Zombie series, would quickly spiral out of control with confusion, with 6 different films bearing the name Zombie 3. But how and why did this happen? The story begins with 2 people, 2 aspiring screenwriters/directors called John A. Russo and George A. Romero. After drawing inspiration from the novel I Am Legend, revolving around a lone survivor pitted against vampire-like creatures that prey on the living, Romero collaborated with Russo, who came up with the idea of the recently deceased coming back to life and preying on the living. With a budget of only $114,000, the movie was shot in black and white under the title Night of the Flesh Eaters. However, due to the original title being taken, it was renamed Night of the Living Dead. And it would go on not only to shape the modern zombie movie, but the entire horror genre in general.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
It was arguably the most violent movie audiences had ever seen, with zombies being depicted eating intestines, as well as stabbings and shootings. A month after Night of the Living Dead's premiere, the MPAA's voluntary rating system came into effect. This meant that movies were required to have a certificate rating rather than studios applying for them. Whether or not this was directly linked to the Night of the Living Dead's premiere cannot be accurately sourced, but it's not unreasonable to assume that the previously unseen graphic nature of the film and the public reaction following it had some sort of significant impact towards it. Following the success of Night of the Living Dead, Russo and Romero parted ways, and Romero, 10 years later with a dream team including makeup effects artists Tom Savini and Italian horror pioneer Dario Argento, created a very different, very colourful sequel to Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. Not only is this movie scary, it also threw in a large heap of satire, with Romero and his crew portraying the zombie as mindless consumers in the setting of a mall. Unlike Night of the Living Dead, it goes further to explore the apocalyptic effects a zombie epidemic would have on society. The movie was released worldwide, with Dario Argento re-editing the film for the European releases. This re-edit had a much faster pace and focused more so on the horror and gore aspects of the movie rather than Romero's cut. The film was also renamed Zombie for the overseas release, which has sparked a mass confusion in the world of zombie movies.
They'll think we're crazy if we say it's a cat.
Lucio Fulci directed giallo classics in the early 1970s, such as Don't Torture a Duckling and Sette Notte in Nero, also known as The Psychic. However, the latter film was a box office failure and Fulci's popularity steadily declined. That, however, was until he was handed the reins to direct an unofficial sequel to Dawn of the Dead following its huge success in Europe. Before I go further, it's worth noting that there are many conflicting sources on the history of this movie's production. Many sources say the movie was made to cash in on the success of Dawn of the Dead, as Italian copyright laws at the time allowed any film to be called a sequel to a completely unrelated movie. However, other sources claim screenwriter Dardano Sacchetti wrote an initial script in July of 1978, 2 months before Dawn of the Dead was released in Italy, with his production company optioning to shoot the opening and closing scenes in New York after the success of Zombie, and just renaming the film as Zombie 2 in December the same year, serving as a sequel to Dawn of the Dead just 3 months after its release. It is not known how much the success was down to the titling of the movie, nor the scene with the zombie punching the shark. When it was released in the US in 1980, the movie was retitled The Zombie and distanced itself from Dawn of the Dead. The United Kingdom, however, kept the name Dawn of the Dead, and decided to go another route and name the movie a separate title called Zombie Flesh Eaters until it eventually got banned. This would later go on to be the accepted worldwide title amidst all the future confusion. The official sequel to Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, was released in 1985, and obviously couldn't be renamed Zombie 2 in Europe. So instead it was named as that title in their respective languages. This, however, did not seem to deter consumers from seeing the movie, as it took $28 million internationally. The same year, John Rosso's book he wrote after parting ways with Romero was turned into a movie directed by Tobe Hooper. Return of the Living Dead is not part of the Zombie series per se, but I feel it's worth mentioning because it arguably can be called a non-canonical sequel to The Night of the Living Dead. Rosso was able to retain the rights to include his works to feature Living Dead in the title. This is also the first instance in which zombies targeting eating brains were introduced.
Why do you eat people?
Not people. Brains.
Brains only.
Yes.
Return of the Living Dead was a smash hit and spawned 4 sequels within 20 years. Zombie 2, or Zombie Flesh Eaters, was a smash hit worldwide and currently has a box office of £3 billion. This resulted in countries worldwide attempting to rename their home distributed movies to be the sequel to Zombie Flesh Eaters, and the third instalment of what is now the Zombie series. In 1980, the first of a handful of movies that would be called Zombie 3 was released. Burial Ground, also known as Nights of Terror, was released after a 4-week shoot, with various names going around different countries. In West Germany, however, is where it would attain the title Zombie 3. Go on another quick tangent, it's worth noting that Zombie 2 is actually named Hoodoo in Germany, with Day of the Dead actually being called Zombie 2 in that country, just in case this series wasn't confusing enough. Next came Nightmare City, which would bear the Zombie 3 title in Greece a year later. Somewhere in the early to mid 1980s, an Italian movie called Panic would be named Zombie 4 in Greece. Next came Zombie Holocaust, also known as Dr. Butcher MD. This was released 1 year after the release and success of Zombie Flesh Eaters, and was released under the alternative title Zombie 3 in the US. Finally, there was Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, a 1974 Spanish horror film predating Dawn of the Dead, which was re-released in Italy as Zombie 3. Although I can't find the year of the re-release, it is reasonable to assume that it was at some point in the 1980s after the release of Zombie Flesh Eaters. It would take until 1988 until the official follow-up to Zombie Flesh Eaters by Lucio Fulci would be released. Zombie 3 is a name-only sequel to Zombie 2, and has absolutely no relation to the aforementioned film. I can't find any box office takings, or indeed how well the film did internationally. However, Lucio Fulci is quoted as saying, "It's the most foolish of my productions, it has been done by a group of idiots." The original Italian Zombie series under Lucio Fulci was finished with after Zombie 3. It became apparent that Fulci wanted no more involvement with the series, and with that came the steady decline of the popularity of zombie movies, and with it, the obsession of renaming everything with the zombie name came to an end. Whether or not this is due to Zombie 3 being a critical and financial failure, I cannot comment on because I cannot find any sources to confirm nor deny. However, with other countries writing off the successes of each of their Zombie 3s, Zombie 4 was released straight to video worldwide in 1988, with the only exceptions being in Greece, Italy where it was named after death until its DVD release, and the UK where it stuck to the Zombie Flesh Eaters series, with this being the third instalment. Zombie 5 is a reissue of a 1987 Italian film called Killing Birds, which again was released in the UK as Zombie Flesh Eaters 4. In 1989, a home video distributor called Eddy Entertainment was launched. They gained infamy re-releasing old VHS copies or TV re-edits of films and subsequently retitling them. Sometime in the 1990s, Eddy Entertainment released a load of completely unrelated European horror films and titling them as zombie sequels. To further escalate the confusion, they released their instalments of Zombie and Zombie 2, which was the same film, Zombie Flesh Eaters. The further releases are as follows: Zombie 3, Return of the Zombies, which was a 1973 Spanish film called The Hanging Woman, Zombie 4, A Virgin Among the Living Dead, a 1973 French erotic film, Zombie 5, Revenge in the House of Usher from 1982, Zombie 6, Monster Hunter, an Italian horror film from 1981 called Absurd, and finally Zombie 7, which is a 1980 movie called Anthropophagus. As if things weren't messed up enough, Zombie 6 is actually a sequel to Zombie 7. In 2005, George A. Romero returned to his Dead series, releasing Land of the Dead. The movie was a hit and spawned 2 more sequels, Diary of the Dead in 2007, which used found footage to portray the zombie outbreak, and finally Survival of the Dead in 2009. This was the last film made by George Romero before his death in 2017. The last few movies I want to talk about, which also bore the zombie name but doesn't fit in a chronological timeline, are Zombie 90, Extreme Pestilence, which was released in the UK as Zombie 7, the video distributor and reason I cannot find, Pulgasari, a North Korean monster movie, which bears a striking resemblance to Toho's monster movies in Japan. When distributed to Pakistan for a TV movie, it bore the incredible title of Zombie 34, the Communist Bull Monster. Finally, in 1996, a collection of Dutch horror short films were released on VHS. One of the short films was called Zombie 1. Yes, Zombie 1. The cycle is finally complete. Although the synopsis bears a striking resemblance to the events of Zombie 2, where an island is attacked by the living dead, the short film is essentially a remake of Night of the Living Dead, with youths trying to defend and barricade themselves against the living dead. So there we have it, a completely incomprehensive guide to the zombie series. In fairness though, a lot of these low-budget, hastily shot European releases are worth seeking out if possible, as they do provide great entertainment regardless of whether or not they are terrible. Of course, it goes without saying, none of this success would be possible without the great mind of George A. Romero, who is sorely missed among the horror world.